There's this young woman, Randy Bergman. She's 31 years old now, but when she was 13, she did one of those time capsule things. What she found was newspaper clippings with her favorite bands and celebrities. There we go. She even had a cassette with one of her favorite jams. You guys remember this song? Check it out.
Oh, Could I Get Up Again? Some interesting. My mixtape looked very different. I was like Nirvana and Pearl Jam. Yeah, I was.
You bringing it back.
Hey, I'm Randy. One day while cleaning out the closet of my old bedroom, I stumbled upon a 3-part time capsule I'd made in 1998 when I turned 13. I meticulously detailed every part of my life, from an itemized list of school crushes to a report on the top 5 trends that year. Obviously, Tamagotchi, hair mascara, and blow-up chairs were among them. It's hilariously delusional and heartwarming as fuck. So join me as I look back at all the things that made growing up in the 90s so rad. And together we'll unbox Capsule 98. So hey, I'm Randy. We are here for the first episode of the Capsule 98 podcast. We are here with Dan Levy. I don't know if you guys know him, but you obviously know him, and stop trying to pretend like you don't, because he is the creator and star of Schitt's Creek, which is SCHITT, not SC.
Big discrepancy.
Yeah. But we're going to swear anyway this episode. And then our co-host for this evening is Blair McGregor. You might know her from Instagram, just existing in the world, being chic.
All of those things.
Welcome, guys.
Thanks
so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on this podcast and letting us record in your beautiful Toronto home.
You're very welcome. I'm honored to be part of this inaugural go at it.
Thank you for the rosé also.
You're very welcome. Let me just say one thing.
Yes.
And I know this is controversial, and I certainly don't want to start this conversation off on the wrong foot.
Uh-oh.
Chumbawamba goes down as one of my least favorite songs of all time. I know that this is hard for us all to sort of talk about now, and I certainly don't want to deflate the wind from your sails. But in defense of Kate Hudson in that moment, I can't guarantee that I wouldn't do the same thing.
Interesting. Blair, do you feel the same, or are you more on my side?
In the spirit of being political in this scenario, I'm going to go on Randy's side.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And actually, you shouldn't have gone on my side because I don't even like that song either.
Okay.
Okay, so
that was just for show.
Yeah, so now
so
now you feel used. You know what the thing is? I didn't not like it. I think it was probably part of that, like, I should include this because it's going to be a #1 song, or it was a #1 song.
It's iconic.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty iconic.
it is, and I think that's what it's like massive sort of British drinking songs have never rubbed me the right way.
Strange. I feel like it's so on brand for you, though.
Yeah. No, I think at the time was probably listening to like Mama from the Spice Girls.
Yeah.
Like that was what I think was going on in my life.
Yeah.
Which I think is telling of where I was at the time. Buying my sister the Spice Girls album because I secretly wanted to listen to it. And now I can openly proclaim that it is a great record.
Do you have a favorite song? Is it Mama?
To Become One.
Mine's
Iconic.
Mama. It's a beautiful track.
Mama's beautiful.
It's insane.
Mama makes me cry for sure.
To Become One, though, can come on at any time of day, whether it's now, whether it was 2 years ago, whether it was 5 years ago, and the room stops and people listen.
Yeah.
And that is a testament to the power
of To Become One.
of To Become One.
And Safe Sex.
And Safe Sex.
Did you know what she was talking about?
Absolutely.
Did you?
Certainly not.
There was a whole era of sort of double entendres when it came to pop music. Mariah Carey's Honey, obviously being one of them. And it's remarkable how many people I've talked to about Mariah Carey's Honey who were shocked at the actual meaning of the song.
Like me right here, right now? I have no idea.
I think I also have no idea.
Yeah.
Stop.
I thought it was about her relationship with Tommy Mottola.
I thought it was
Am I
literally
the
about
only
Honey.
one- Okay. Bringing up the lyrics. Someone pull up the lyrics if
Okay.
we can. And now I'm gonna
Redmond.
No, you know what? Here, I'm gonna pull it up. Mariah.
Dan's dog is gonna bring up the lyrics.
Hold on, my dog's asleep in his bed. He couldn't care less. Mariah Carey, Honey. Now I'm gonna read an excerpt. We can edit this out if you so choose, but I will read you an excerpt of Mariah Carey's Honey, and you tell me
What it's about.
in spoken word what you think it's about. Okay, this is the pre-hook. And it's just like honey when your love comes all over me. That's right. Oh, baby, I've got a dependency, always strung out for another taste of your honey. It's like honey when it rushes over me. You know, sugar never ever was so sweet, and I'm dying for you, crying for you. I adore you. Boy, you know your love addicted me. I'm strung out on you, darling, don't you see?
Wow.
Every night, I can hardly wait for another taste of honey. Honey, I can't describe how good it feels. Honey, I can't describe how good it feels inside.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, there's a whole thing about a teaspoon in here, too.
It literally just could be about the honey, though.
Hold on.
Maybe he's a beekeeper.
Hold on 1 second. Let me get to the good part.
I think that one thing I wanted to point out is that she said, "You're addicting me." What did she say?
Addicting me.
That's not
No,
a term.
I just
think
could have
that's
said
the
it wrong.
worst part.
There's a chance that I said it wrong. She does at one point say, teaspoon of your honey.
Yeah, but would you use a teaspoon for sex?
I think it's a measurement tool, and if we were to do some measurements on what that amounts to.
That's a good... is it? I don't know. Anybody?
I believe I've done the research on this, and I can't speak for everyone. Did
know
this
a lot.
conversation take a very strange turn?
Took a strange turn.
Anyway,
you know a lot
Mariah
about
Carey, honey is about ejaculation. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm a pervert, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's about.
It's also about drugs because she's strung out, which I think is also a 90s theme,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. I would argue that the addiction is
She's
to...
a junkie.
is
I would argue
to
Mariah
what she's taking a teaspoon
unwell.
of.
Okay, but I have a question.
Yeah.
Why would it be about how addicted she is if she's also trying to get out of this horrible marriage with her husband, Tommy Mottola,
I'll
who's
have
in the
you know
video?
that Honey was on the Butterfly album, which was her first album post Tommy Mottola.
But it's the premise
Only
of the
Dan would
video,
know
isn't
that.
it?
Huh?
But it's the premise of the video.
Yes, the premise of the video back in 1998 had nothing to do with the song itself, but the Butterfly record, hence Butterfly, Spread
She's a
Your Wings
butterfly.
and Fly, Butterfly, is the release from the Tommy Mottola.
Another release. Also, just to get back to the intro.
Sure.
We
You're a natural.
we are here to talk about the time capsule, but then also talk about the 90s.
Sure.
And I have brought evidence of the first time capsule. And by evidence of the first time capsule, I mean the actual first time capsule.
Looking at it, and I will describe this for everyone at home who's listening.
Cookie box.
It's one of those like shortbread cookie tins, right? Like a round classic shortbread cookie tin.
Like President's Choice.
The ingredients are wheat flour, sugar,
go.
butter,
Exactly.
desiccated coconut, salt, currants, eggs, vanilla, raising agent.
Wow.
Love a raising agent.
I had some dark days with those shortbread tins.
I thought you were going to say with those raising agents.
You know me and raising agents.
So on the top of the tin, the first tin, it says, in 1998, I am going to be a star. I'm going to have style. I'm going to be foxy, independent, sexy, cool, the queen.
Wow.
Thoughts?
I would kill for your confidence. Now.
I don't know
That's not even back then. Like
How
I
old
would
were you
kill
when
for
you
that
made
kind
this?
of confidence.
12.
So you were, and that's what you're like forecasting your future to be a star.
Well,
No,
in 1998.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
she was proclaiming by the end of the year she would go from
Those are like,
her 12-year-old
A caterpillar to a butterfly.
Canadian self to an international. She would be on the World Music Awards with Michael Jackson and Celine Dion.
yeah. All in 365 days.
Remember
Well-
the World Music Awards?
Yes.
What is
Televised.
that? What is that?
They were magic.
Wait, were those
What
the ones that
network?
were sponsored by the Monaco guy?
Yes, by the Prince of Monaco.
Totally.
And
Bring that back.
Absolutely.
Also, the Monaco guy, another person who has like maybe captured his wife.
Is that Monaco?
Yes, that's
That's
the one.
his wife,
Prince
the one that
Albert,
was
that's
crying at the
one who's-
wedding?
Yes.
The swimmer?
No, there was a story of. I didn't know that was Monaco, but yes,
Yes.
his wife apparently
Her
was
name's like Charlene something.
Yeah, she's a South African?
Yes,
South African?
yeah.
Yeah,
She was
Yeah.
apparently like
she's a swimmer. She's an
essentially
Olympic swimmer.
bound
Yeah.
to him,
Yeah.
Yeah.
housebound almost.
Yeah, and she looks like Charlize Theron.
Yeah. Just Google her wedding.
Everybody
She
at
is
home,
so upset.
Google.
I don't know how we
Google her wedding.
talked about relationships
nothing.
wherein the female in the relationship is housebound.
That's true.
Almost imprisoned in the relationship.
I mean, I was imprisoned by my parents. Like I had to go to school.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
was
mean-
grounded every single weekend in
Were you?
1998. Yes.
What did you do to get grounded?
My parents' idea of what a bad kid was very different from what actual bad kids were. So I guess it was, choosing to go to the corner store and buy sour keys past curfew, which at the time was probably 4:30 p.m.
Yeah. It was definitely your mom that was grounding you. I feel.
They both almost actively sought out the grounding experience for me. Part of me feels like they just didn't want to be alone in the house. Like they wanted to hold their kids as close as they possibly could for as long as they could. But I was grounded almost every weekend.
And like, did it just mean you couldn't go out, or was?
Yeah, it meant I was in the house. The saying in my home was "you're in," so that just meant like
That really is.
that's
psycho.
done for the weekend. You are in your house. And at one point I rebelled, got on the roof of my home and toilet papered my own house.
Not even a little bit dramatic in 1998.
I was extremely chill in the late 90s.
Did you admit to it? Like, was it like I did this? Fuck yeah.
No, they knew I was doing it. It was my parents were in the kitchen looking out the window and seeing sort of rolls of toilet paper.
How old were you?
Too old to probably be doing that,
Right.
but it was great at the time. And then my dad made me go and pick it all up out of the backyard after it had rained. So the experience itself was not. I regret it, I guess now is what I'm saying.
And then you paper mache'd something out of it, or did it just go into the garbage?
No, I'm pretty sure at the time, and this makes me feel sick, obviously, because it was a waste of valuable resources. But I believe it was thrown out.
When you were grounded and you had to stay in?
Or recycled. It was recycled.
It
I'm
was
going to go with
definitely
recycled.
composted.
Yeah.
I don't know if composting. Well, I guess it was a thing in 1998.
No, certainly not.
All the things I never thought we'd be talking about on the first episode of Capsule 98.
Dan TPing his own house.
And composting.
Yeah.
And abusive marriages.
Yeah.
And the subtext of Mariah Carey's Honey.
And the fact that honey amounts to about a teaspoon each time.
Yes.
Getting back to sweets, the cookie jar that my capsule is in. Another thing, during it for the capsule, I wrote 3 proclamations at different points of the year, and the first one is on the side of the tin. The second one happens, halfway through the year, and the third one happens at the end of the year as a.
Can I touch it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it should be so lucky. And on the side, it says, I was also, by the way, I don't know if you guys were the same way, and I would like to hear your opinions. I was obsessed with documentation. Like, I definitely knew that one day somebody would be talking about it.
No, not me.
No.
Not at all. Not a whisper.
Not a whisper. But, like, okay.
Like photo albums maybe, but not writing down
everything about myself.
10-year goals.
So on the side, it says, my name is Randy Bergman. I am 12. In April, I will be 13.
You have great penmanship, by the
Thank
way.
I was
you.
going to say that
For
too.
12.
And I can see what your penmanship looks like now, and I argue it might have gotten worse.
I think
you were
probably.
12. It's very large now.
My favorite color is yellow. My favorite number is 28. My favorite movie.
Why might I ask?
Because it's my birthday.
Got it.
Favorite movie, Titanic.
Favorite movie, Titanic. And Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, amazing.
And then you'll see some themes going through. My favorite actor is Leonardo DiCaprio. And wouldn't you know it, that my favorite actresses are Kate Winslet and Claire Danes. I love the Backstreet Boys. Brian, Nick, AJ, Howie, Kevin. Oh, they are so hot.
And Randy is
I will
wearing
say
a T-shirt
this.
right now.
You're
at
wearing
the
a
moment.
Backstreet Boys T-shirt, so the infatuation has clearly not left your soul.
No, well, how could it ever?
To say, "Oh, they are so hot," is a choice made at a young age, a literary choice made at a very young age, and I think the dramatic flourish with which you wrote is commendable.
Thank you. Just to continue, I also like the Spice Girls. I'm in grade 7 right now, in brackets January. I have a crush on Noah Kaufman. I probably won't like him later in 98 though. I'm in a club called the Pink Ladies. It's not exactly a club. It's just best friends with Tova, Adina, Netta, Tamar, and Aaron. Well, I gotta go. I heart you and the Backstreet Boys.
Who's you?
Myself.
Oh.
Right. Yeah.
Again, I think what should be taken from this,
Randy
from the
herself.
sort of first glance at this capsule, is a remarkable sense of self and self-confidence. And I would say in today's modern age, we need that more now than ever before.
You're so right.
I'm affected deeply by the confidence with which you carried yourself at 12.
Thank you. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but in a later letter, I signed the second letter off with "I love you" in brackets myself.
Wow.
And then it says, "Who is she? I am me. Girl power. Peace."
Wow.
So it continues.
There's definitely a theme there.
I think it's girl
People
power.
spend a tremendous amount of money to be as confident and at peace with themselves as you were at 12.
I don't think it's continued. Were you guys confident
No.
at that age?
Not like you.
Hard no.
Not confident, but not like that.
Crippling anxiety, a severe sense of inadequacy,
I'm laughing.
troubling social anxiety. I mean, we could just...
Why am I laughing?
Well, because I guess thinking of me at that time being like a broken shell of a person is kind of funny, considering I've recovered and I'm here.
That's true,
So
considering
we can all laugh at it.
You've come out the other side
I
quite
have.
beautifully, I would say.
I did a lot of work on myself.
Do you think that you've come out like a butterfly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you still love Mariah as much as you did in 98.
You know, I have a different appreciation for Mariah. Back then, I think it was I was quite entranced by her voice. I'd never heard anything like it, aside from Whitney Houston on the Bodyguard soundtrack, which was the first compact disc I ever purchased. And now I appreciate Mariah for very different reasons, which is a complete disregard for
Gives
anyone
no
and
fucks.
anything.
Zero.
Which I think is pretty great. Like,
Yeah.
all she really wants to be doing is getting boozed in Capri.
Bathtub.
Like, she wants to be on the Amalfi Coast on a boat, getting shit-faced, and she's quite unapologetic about it, which I think is remarkable.
I wrote a question here that says, how many of you guys were kids? Which
How many of us were kids? That's a really interesting question. I'd argue that as a kid, I never saw myself as a kid, so maybe I was never a kid.
I don't know why every time you say something like that, I just laugh, even though it's like trash.
Just like dipping my toes in my dark past.
Yeah.
It's funny now.
It's cute.
I'm great, guys.
Can you
It's
talk
all-
about your camp experience really quickly?
Well, my parents sent me to a summer camp. I did not like being put in places where I didn't have control, which is funny because now I've sort of manifested a job where I have complete control. But my parents sent me, I think I was 13, 14, sent me to a summer camp where I was a prisoner. For lack of a better word, not to be
To a recording contract.
obviously, like I'm saying this as a 14-year-old, not as a grown human who's equating prisoners with me at summer camp. But I was so upset, and I wanted my parents to come and pick me up, that I started writing very sort of threatening letters home to them. You know, like, I'm going to run away. I'm going to take the boat. I'm going to take the boat across the lake, and I'm going to start running. And the camp told my parents that I was doing fine. I was then told by the camp that I had to stop sending letters because the postage was costing them money. And eventually my parents decided to come and pick me up on my birthday. So I packed up my whole bunk and got ready, and then someone from the camp told me that they told my parents that I was fine.
No.
And that I didn't need to go home.
Why?
Because it was hell on earth.
But why did they do that?
Because they hated me? I don't know. It's the most scarring experience. And my dad, to this day, like, my mom has kept all the letters just for fun. And I hold it over them on a daily basis. Scarring.
That is scarring. So tell us a little bit about your role on Schitt's Creek and how do you use it to torture anybody?
No,
or manifest
no.
control?
I had, listen, all you can do, I think, in your life is try and learn from your previous experiences professionally and personally. And I feel like I spent a long time at MTV where I was able to learn, acquire skills when it came to people management, how to make people feel motivated, how to keep people inspired, and brought that into this job. And, now we're in charge of, it's like 100, and I don't know what our crew is, 100, I think it's 147 people at this point. And I think the key to anything, if we're getting into like professional real talk, is to make people feel valued. I think that's like at the fundamental basis of any kind of professional work environment, is if you are feeling valued and appreciated, you will do great work. In the same way that when you were in high school and there was a teacher that made you feel valued and appreciated, you did better work for that teacher than the teacher that, wouldn't help you at all. There's a few of those. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so yeah, it's fun. We have a really good time on the show. That's amazing. But do you like to manifest control over anyone? I don't think well, yes. Okay, sure. I have been given a rare opportunity opportunity where I have control over a situation, and I like it a lot. Control, I feel like the word itself has a negative connotation. I think to oversee elements, there's a specificity to the vision of the show that I think my dad and I collectively have been able to sort of impart on the team. And I don't think we would have the same show if we weren't allowed that level of control. Mm-hmm. So I think if you handle it properly, it can be quite a great thing. Yeah, it just makes people really nuts in the head sometimes, I think, when you're given a lot of it. When you're giving control and power and you're like... Yeah, you get mean sometimes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because with control comes a lot of responsibility, and it's about handling responsibility. Because I think some people want the power and they want the control, and then when it comes, they're like, wow, what the fuck do I do now? Like, it's too much. That brings me back to sort of things that you thought about when you were a kid. Did you guys have any forward thinking goals? Like, was this sort of something that you ever wanted to do as a kid? Or as a teen, let's say? As a child, I always wanted to escape being a child. I always, in my brain, knew that all I wanted was a nice apartment for myself, a nice life, and a nice job. Something about the mundanity of, and granted, like, school should be an inspiring place where you learn and have fun. I think for a multitude of reasons, I wanted desperately to be an adult. Mm. Do you look back and wish that you were still a kid at all? No. No. I think you're unique in that. I feel like most people do look back and... I don't regret any of the school and any of the time in school in my teenage years, but I certainly would never want to go back. What about you? Like, what did I want to do? Mm-hmm. I feel like I wanted to be like... I really loved Clueless. And I feel like I just wanted to move to, like, Hollywood and basically do anything. And just be someone's daughter? Just, like, be someone's, like, assistant. Do you guys remember as kids, like, I mean, I guess you would have spent more time in LA, but, like, as a kid, I especially in the 90s, I remember this focus on LA all the time. And it was just, like, there were certain things about LA and certain things about the style that were just, like, part of my childhood. And I think it was that emphasis. Well, you love 90210 more than anyone in North America. Yes. That was my childhood goal, was to be on 90210. Fuck. That was the goal, and it never happened. And there was a moment in my life where I had the kind of confidence that you have approaching your life in 1998 that I had, thinking, if I just met someone who could put me in touch with Aaron Spelling. I don't know what I'd be. I could be Kelly's younger brother that came out of a sewer
Kelly's
grate.
other younger brother.
Other younger brother.
Yeah.
And it never happened.
You could have been Silver on the new season.
Well, the funny thing is, Dustin Milligan was in the first season of the new season of 90210.
And now he's on Schitt.
And now he's on my show. So in a way, I touched the franchise.
Yeah. I love a reboot if it's done well.
Interesting that you say that because there are so many reboots happening right now.
Yeah.
You feel good about them?
Certain ones only.
Like which ones?
For example.
90210.
Hated it.
I also, but you know what? I can't say I hated it. I saw it through the lens of the old show. And I think when you hold a new show to the standards with which you held the old show, it's impossible to succeed. I think if I came into it with a fresh set of eyes thinking, this is like Tiger Beat High, it would be a different experience. When you slap 90210 onto something, there is a prestige that for many of us was impossible to recreate.
It's true. What are the other ones that you like?
I can't think of any now. Now you put me on the spot. I'm nervous.
Heathers is coming out. That's not 90s, but that's a reboot.
There's some really great writers that are writing on Heathers.
All right.
That I follow on the internet. So I'm very excited about that. But there's not really been anything.
No.
Fuller House, I've heard, is the #1 highest rated show on Netflix. They will not release those numbers.
Are you serious?
Yes, they. Well, I read an article that said it is the most watched show on Netflix. Now,
in what way? I can't watch it.
With all due respect, it is a hard watch if you're not a baby or a parent with a baby. And maybe I think that's what they're catering to. Now when I watch episodes of Full House that are randomly rerun on TV, I think to myself, I get it.
Yeah.
It's certainly fresher than I think the new version, but it's still very saccharine.
I think I remember as a kid thinking it was saccharine.
Yeah.
Did you guys like it as kids?
Obsessed.
Yes.
Are you obsessed with the Olsens?
Yes. I said this to someone.
Just know that you are.
Roughly 3 hours ago. That obsession is never going to slow down. They're the coolest people in the world. I'm never going to get over it. They're the best. And the fact that they didn't come back to Fuller House made me realize
that I think would have been
insane. They gave up acting after New York Minute, a wonderful film. But
wait, just pause on New York Minute. Do you know the scene where she jumps into the crowd and then but it's a doll?
Yes, of course. My sister was an extra in that movie with Dan's sister. In the Simple Plan concert.
Yeah.
Dan, you were also an extra before you were a star.
Yeah, you're right.
What was that for?
What was that about?
A friend of mine was involved, I guess, did some extra work here in Toronto, and Kelly Clarkson's Behind These Hazel Eyes video, if you haven't watched it, please do yourself a favor and look it up, was shooting locally. And she called to ask if I wanted to come and be involved. At the time, I was infatuated with Kelly Clarkson. Again, I have an affinity for female vocalists with world-class voices.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was the peak. Since You've Been Gone was that on this record? Yeah.
Behind These Hazel Eyes? No,
that was the next one.
Yeah.
Anyway, was in the video. There is a still, if you start it, you can see me as a guest in the wedding sequence of the Behind This Hazel Eyes video.
Yeah.
And I still talk about it as sort of a crown jewel in my burgeoning career.
You love a female powerhouse more than anyone I've ever met.
I have a deep, deep respect for a tremendous
vocalist,
female vocalist.
So getting back to the Olsens, did you guys have any obsessions with child stars at the time?
that were popular in the 90s?
Loved Matilda. Also loved that. Yeah. Also loved that movie, The Little Princess. I don't know her name, but she was an heiress, so that made her far more interesting for me.
Little Princess was a great movie, beautifully shot, and
beautifully shot.
The only thing I remember from it, obviously, was that there was a dream sequence where they just ate food.
Yeah, they make a breakfast.
I'll remember a beautifully shot food sequence in any film. My kindergarten report card said, you know, like, he's a fine student. When it comes to snack time, often, quote, often takes more than his fair share.
Wow.
Some things never change. That's one of them for me.
So getting back to child stars, I'm just going to share a story. I was obsessed as a child with Elijah Wood. This is pre-98, but when he was a child star, do you remember when he was like in Flipper, Huckleberry Finn?
Was he in Jumanji?
No.
Okay.
That's somebody else, but I forget who.
Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst, and I don't know who the boy is.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with him. And then he was like total sexual awakening. And then I saw him at a party at Fashion Week like 10 years ago. And I went up to him and was like, you were my first boyfriend. And he looked at me and he was like,
how'd that go?
How old are you?
Elijah Wood was what ushered in your sexual awakening?
Yes.
I
was
love that.
confident that he was going to be like stunning as an adult.
And he's probably shorter than you.
Yeah, I think so.
Was
he
he
is
nice?
stunning, actually.
I'll say this. He has a great look.
Yeah.
Again, very specific look.
Yes. But a nice face.
Yeah.
Great face.
Loved him as
And
a
has
child.
managed a very respectful career.
Yeah.
Isn't he in Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
Yeah.
A film I've never seen and never cared to see.
He was in.
It's actually pretty good.
What is it? Like one of the highest grossing movie franchises of all time, and yet has managed to live a relatively normal, great, low-key life. I think that's the dream.
Talking about sexual movies, did you guys ever sneak in to see movies when you were kids? That was a real
I snuck
pastime
in to
of the
see
90s.
one of the most iconically sexual movies of the 90s or early 2000s, Wild Things.
Oh, so did I, of course.
Who's in that? Denise Richards?
Denise Richards, Nev Campbell, Kevin Bacon, with
There's
a
somebody
lot
else.
of nudity and a full frontal scene from Kevin Bacon.
Was that
Wait,
rated
who's the other
R?
guy?
Matt Dillon.
Matt Dillon, yeah. Oh my God. I also, so we'll get into this in future episodes, but I saved all my movie tickets from 98. It's a 98 movie. I saved all my tickets and I rated them and then included who I saw them with. And I think there was a bit of self-editing with the ratings because Wild Things, I gave it like 2 stars and I said it was perverted and confusing. But clearly I went home and was like, that was the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
What else did you see that year?
Everything that's important. Titanic like 700 times.
Yeah.
Good Will Hunting, which I also rated 5 stars, brilliant. Like a 13-year-old would understand.
Roger
the full,
Ebert.
Yeah, the full like gravitas of that movie.
Yeah.
It was a big year.
It was a big year. That was a big Oscar year.
Yeah.
Was Good Will Hunting, was that the same year that Shakespeare in Love came out?
I was going to say, was that Shakespeare
I
in
don't
Love?
know. It wasn't in my movie stuff.
Did Ben and Matt win the same year that Gwyneth? I think she did.
I think so, yeah.
Won for Shakespeare in
What a
Love, which was a
year.
huge upset that she won over Cate Blanchett for Elizabeth, which, don't get me wrong, like, don't want to hate on Gwyneth, but I think it was... That was the Harvey Weinstein sort of Miramax vehicle of Oscar campaigning
Right.
that was at play.
But at least
I really loved her in the movie, but Cate Blanchett and Elizabeth, it's like, whoa.
But
what?
at least we have that pink Ralph Lauren number in our minds. Would we
Gwyneth?
have had it if she didn't win?
We wouldn't have had it, but I'm just going to say something controversial for the sake of saying something controversial. It didn't fit properly. Am I
know.
wrong?
Agree.
That tube dress?
No, it
No, it
wasn't
was
tube, it's a pink dress.
sort of. She looked. I mean, she did the
look
best
at that.
she could with that dress.
Yeah,
but
her
I
boobs
don't
are a
think
little-
it
are a little
fit
small for it,
properly.
yeah. But it
I'm
was,
just gonna say it.
no. I mean, it's not my favorite look in Oscar history, but
No, but it's an
pretty
iconic
Yeah.
Oscar look for sure. but one that I think people sort of look back on with sort of a nostalgic fondness and not necessarily sort of a crystal accuracy.
Well, that's another interesting thing about nostalgia. Nostalgia, sort of, when you look back, somebody put this to me, that when you look back, when you look back with fondness, you automatically assume that the thing that you're looking back is amazing. And that's not necessarily the case, but everything in the 90s we look back and we're like, oh, of course, it's iconic, it's the best. Even when you look back at something that's not that great. Like, especially now that everybody's so obsessed with the early 2000s, it's like the hallmark style of the early 2000s is trash. But we look back at it and we're like, I love it. Right?
Yeah, which will then come with sort of, it's the ebb and flow of cultural regret, I think, when it comes to clothing and fashion and everything that we've done.
Why do you think that we are all so obsessed with the 90s?
Because nothing is like it anymore. I was talking about this today with someone about the movie Center Stage.
Iconic.
And she was like, my husband's never seen it. And I'm like, that's fucked up. It's my favorite movie.
I'm the best damn dancer at this entire academy. Yeah. Who the hell are you?
Exactly. See? You probably haven't seen that movie in 10 years.
I took a girl on a date to see that movie.
Oh.
So if you wanted to know how we ended up as a couple, the answer is we didn't.
The answer is at the end you were giving her a rose and everybody was saying Jodie Sawyer.
Absolutely.
Jodie Sawyer, everyone.
Jodie Sawyer, everyone.
You know what I think it is? I feel like the late 90s into the 2000s saw a sort of an explosion of pop culture that we hadn't seen since. There were sort of like, the 80s had their moment within the decade, the 70s had their moment within the decade, and the 90s, it was the late 90s. Granted, Dance Mix 93 and all that happened in the early 90s were also a great time for pop culture, but I do feel like it was an appreciation of fashion that we hadn't seen quite as broadly accepted as it was. You were talking earlier about Gwen Stefani at the VMAs. I feel like the VMAs, if you look back at the VMAs from 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, you saw a cross-section of popular culture that was unbridled, for lack of a better word. It was unaffected by Instagram, social media, what other people thought. These were pop culture icons expressing themselves with help from, I guess, stylists, but it was a perspective that was not influenced by what anyone else thought. And that, I think, is what was so inspiring about it, and also what's so sad about what's going on now.
And they weren't accessible. Now everyone, what they're doing. Like in the 90s, whether it was like NSYNC or whoever was at Much Music or Destiny's Child, you would like go and wait because you had no idea what they were doing before that. It's like you didn't know anything about them except for when they were going to be in Toronto at Much Music. And now like what they had for breakfast, and it's changed. And so all those shows like TRL and all those shows in the 90s were like so amazing. And remember that show MTV Diary?
Yeah.
You think but you have no idea?
It was the only time you got to see people behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And now it's like I'd rather close the doors and not see, for the most part, what anyone's doing.
There was a tweet that I saw the other day that said 15 years ago the internet was an escape from life,
yeah,
and
now
I saw the real
life is an escape from the internet.
Yeah.
Scary.
Another interesting thing that I saw when I was watching the MTV Awards this weekend is that all the promotions were bringing back things from the 90s.
Like what?
Like they're bringing back TRL, and all of the pictures from TRL were like 90s pictures. It was like Britney, Carson Daly.
Yeah.
Not to mention any image you see of the Hadid sisters. That's just like straight 99 fashion. Like
Aaliyah.
It's the
Tommy.
Tiny glasses.
Yeah.
It's all we're referencing big time now.
I live for tiny glasses.
Yeah, you do. I was just going to say that. That's your vibe.
I can't wear tiny glasses, unfortunately.
I can't really either, but I'm trying. For listeners who are in the US, I don't know if you guys got Reboot, but it was an iconic cartoon series. And there are several people on Reboot that I'm constantly referencing. Hexadecimal was the main villain, and she had tiny glasses or tiny eyes.
That's who like you look at before you go out on a Friday night. You're like,
yeah, I'm like, I'm
what do I wear?
Hexadens.
Well, yeah, I mean, draw that influence from wherever you can at this point, you know? And as obscure as the reference can be, the better.
So, at the end of every episode, I want to do this thing called the Bring Back, which is inspired by this list that I found inside my time capsule of my favorite things of 1998. And I'd like to ask my guests what they'd like to bring back from the 90s. So, my favorite food was zucchini casserole.
Yikes.
I don't even know what that is.
It's my mom's recipe. It's amazing.
No offense to your mom, but I just got every hair on my body stood on end.
My favorite junk food was cheesecake, which isn't junk food, but
well,
just
whatever.
a dessert.
I mean, I'd argue it's a pretty indulgent choice.
Yeah.
My favorite store plus make was Gap and Tommy Hilfiger.
Fair.
My favorite perfume, which is spelled without an E, was
Gap
Obsession
Dream.
by Calvin Klein.
Calvin Klein.
And my favorite cologne was B by Calvin Klein. And then in brackets, it says men and women.
Yeah, CKB still triggers an emotional memory for me.
Which is?
The person I had my first gay kiss with was wearing CKB.
Let's just pause for a second. Go on.
That was it. So the smell has like a, you know, it's like you have sense memory.
It's true, actually.
I can always remember exactly where I was.
Where were you when you first smelled CKB?
I don't even know what that is. I know.
Oh my God.
I think I'm just gonna leave, to be honest. I know Clinique. That was like a very.
You know Clinique Happy. I can tell right now.
Let
she
me
knows
guess.
Clinique
You
Happy
tore
and
the
Ralph.
Clinique ads out of the
Clinique
newspaper and
Happy.
wallpapered your
I mean, I did
locker
too.
with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I also
Precisely.
did, of course.
Yeah.
And then my favorite drink was Coke, and my favorite word is utopia.
Oh.
Utopia, wasn't that a beverage?
Fruitopia.
Yes, but
Fruitopia.
apparently it's also my favorite word.
Right.
And then lastly, my favorite expressions were girl power and raise your hand if ew.
What was that?
What about get out of my facial
Act.
act?
I think that was maybe earlier than 98.
Raise your hand if ew.
Do we think that we're going to bring that back too?
Could do, yeah.
What are some expressions that you guys had that you'd like to bring back?
Talk to the hand.
That's a good
I wish I could say that to most people every day.
What about
I actually wrote Talk to the Hand into my show recently for my dad, who did that
Yeah.
to us. He said, talk to the hand.
But
And-
didn't he get it wrong or something?
Well, he got the because it was the full expression is talk to the hand because the face ain't interested.
I forgot that part.
So we just played around with that. I can't remember what we did, but you know, the expression made it into
Yeah.
was manifested.
And what are some foods you want to bring back?
Fruit roll-ups? A bit?
Here's what I'll say about 1998 or 1997 or the mid to late 90s. Ordering pizza was the greatest indulgence I could imagine as a young child.
From?
I think at the time it was pizza.
Yeah.
And I remember in 7th grade having a friend whose parents let us order pizza whenever we wanted. And I remember wanting to go over to his house all the time because it just meant like watching movies and staying up late and ordering pizza. To this day, as an adult, the joy that ordering pizza brings to my life, knowing that I can sit in my apartment, go on my computer, pull up the Domino's app, and order pizza whenever I want, is a simple pleasure that I will never take for granted.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, on that note,
We've come so far, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you for this wonderful trip down memory lane.
Thank you.
you're
I
welcome.
feel like we covered a very dynamic range of topics and territories.
Yeah.
I mean, so many things.
Thanks for cracking open.
Cropping open.
Thanks for cracking open the time capsule for us.
I mean, there's so much more to come in future episodes. We are going to do full episodes dedicated to all the things that you are obsessed with, as am I, obviously. Full episode on Titanic, so many things about crushes. We could obviously talk about that for 17 episodes on its own. Spice Girls, Backstreet Boys, obsessions of all sorts. Zucchini casserole, not its own episode, but it's going to be a thing at some point. Follow us on Instagram at Capsule98. And if you have anything you'd like to share, DM me. Get out of my facial act. I think maybe that's how we're going to exit every episode. Can you guys say it?
Get out of my
facial act.
Thank you.
I feel like I didn't sell that well.
Get the fuck out of my facial act.